Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice, and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Each episode is a conversation with inspiring people who make wonderful contributions to our knowledge in these areas and spark curiosity and ideas to pursue. Join me, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
None of us, in my opinion, have the right to show up and pile on top of other people because life is tough enough. Just one-on-one with ourselves is difficult enough. And I really feel like when we make the conscious decision every day to show up from our highest level of service to humanity and give everything the best that we've got, then we've done our job to service humanity in a way that we should be addressing each other. And let me make one other point here is that some people will say, well, that's not being authentic. You can't have a good day every day. And I say, yes, you can. You just got to decide that you're going to do it. You know, the imposter, us, is the whiner and the complainer. But when we make a conscious decision to show up from our highest level of competency and support for other people, that's the real us. You know, the other us is the human side. The real us is the superhuman side. They could call people to a hard game.
Hi there, Innovator. It's really great to be back with another episode. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. And I hope you enjoyed my recent conversations with Dr. Catherine Lloyd, the founder and director of Maverick Minds, and with business strategist Ken Foster, the author of The Courage to Change Everything. I'm really excited today to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest, Dr. Jeff Spencer, also known as the Cornerman. Jeff has had a really full life. At the age of 11, he made the commitment to join the 1972 Olympics US cycling team as a cyclist. And against all odds, that dream became a reality. Later, after earning a master's degree in sports science, Jeff resolved to spend the rest of his life showing others where they were on their path, what was coming next, and the smoothest path forward to reach their bigger future and best legacy. Today, Jeff is a champion maker with clients ranging as widely as golfer Tiger Woods to Rockband U2 and businesses Bulletproof to Nike. He teaches his clients his roadmap experience, how to achieve your goals. A quick promotional message from our sponsor, that's InnovaBuzz, where we help coaches and consultants build professional credibility, engage their target audience, and connect with their ideal client. That requires absolute clarity about who your ideal clients are and how you can help them. To help you get that clarity about your ideal client, take a look at our Marketing Master mini class, where in less than 30 minutes, you'll gain absolute clarity on your ideal client and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. Access the Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/Marketing Master. It's completely free and accessible without even giving away your email. In our discussion today, Jeff talked to me about his champion's mindset that begins with making your ultimate outcome part of your identity. He described the steps to achieving your goal and the importance of preparation and trust in both the process and in yourself. And he talked to us about what he's learned from raising his very special daughter. Of course, we did geek out a little bit about cycling. We couldn't help ourselves there, but hopefully that won't bore you too much. And I think there's some amazing lessons to be learned from Jeff in this episode. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Jeff Spencer. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Pasadena in California, Dr. Jeff Spencer, who's a speaker, a coach. He's the author of books on champion mindset, and he's a self-described cornerman, which he calls beyond a coach, beyond a mentor, and beyond an expert. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Jeff. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
Back at you. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Steve Sims, who was our guest on episode 243 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we get you on the podcast and have a conversation. So big hello to Steve.
Yeah, one of the best guys on the planet.
Now, Jeff, you've got a fascinating story, and we were having a conversation about cycling just before, very briefly, but you've got a great collection of experiences that have given you a unique vantage point that you use to guide and inspire and challenge high-performing individuals across all kinds of endeavors, from business through sport, and even I was just reading before, you've worked with Rockband U2, which I was a big fan of back in the 90s.
Me too.
And so I'm really looking forward to unpacking a lot of that knowledge today. You're an elite cyclist competing in the 1972 Olympics. You've been a chiropractor and sports scientist following the Tour de France for over 10 years, I think, which, that kind of touches into one of my passions. And as a keen cyclist myself, obviously, but as I say, I'm really looking forward to unpacking all these champion mindset knowledge and insights that you have today. But before we do that, before we talk about high performance and about cycling and get distracted on that, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Well, when I was 7 years old, I thought it'd be really cool to be an Olympian. I just had Olympics on the brain. I didn't know how I was actually going to become an Olympian. But then when I was 11, I showed some very unusual talent on a bicycle. And I said, that's how I'm going to do it. And I had the most magnificent coach. He was a 5-time national champion, 3-time Olympian. And he taught me how to win. He taught me the skill of winning. It wasn't about trying harder, but there's a very deliberate process by which you take control of your destiny. And when you do the right stuff and you show up and you do what has to go right when it counts, then that's how you manifest your highest potential. And I invested 10 years in that hope. And when I was 21, I actually did become an Olympian. And I owe everything to him through his guidance and support to show me how to get that done. And I also had another mentor who was a bit of a life mentor, and I was actually chosen by him to be his apprentice to help him craft his glass masterpieces. He was a glass master and a true Renaissance man. And one of the benefits of being around someone that's been a poet, a playwright, an author, he won an Emmy for a film that was done about his creative philosophy, is that at lunch when we would break, he would play classical music to me. He would read to me the poets. He would read to me ancient history. He would fill me up in the philosophers, and that was a capacity that I was able to absorb. And I also come from a very artistic background as well. So with that interesting montage of influence and mentorship, I was able to craft a very unique way of looking at life. And when I did become an Olympian, that certainly gave me an authority to be able to take people to the Olympic level, whether it's in sports, business, or entertainment. It's really a state of being is what it is. It's not specific to sport. So I understood that very well. And I also got my master's degree in sports science while I was training to become an Olympian. And that gave me the knowledge of how to craft a body that could push. And if you're going to be successful, you got to be able to push. You got to be able to know that you can push. And it also gave me the knowledge on how to stay in the game over the long term. To once you get it figured out, then you have a long runway to create a massive and memorable legacy. And so with those assets, I began working with athletes who wanted to win gold medals and become highly paid professionals. And there were people in the business world that came to me that wanted to become their own champions. And they thought I must know something about that so that I could help them. And so there was another twist to this, is that the athletes ask, well, how do I not get injured? And how do I get back quickly if I do get injured? Because if I add 10 years onto my career, that could be hundreds of millions of dollars. And the business people said, well, look, I don't want to be like my counterparts. They're all having heart attacks in their early 40s and strokes. And I can't afford to do that. I want to be somebody that creates an iconic legacy. How do I not make that my fate? And so I went back to chiropractic college and I got my licensure to be a primary healthcare provider to help them secure the health necessary to perform well, basically over the long term. So with that, I became a one-stop Jiffy Lube shopping center where you could actually go and you could have all your needs looked at by someone that understood everything that it took to get to the top and stay there. And so that was a bit of a departure from the traditional coaching role, which is on one specific area, but it was about the individual, the team, and the organization taken as a whole. And that's how I found my way into the rarefied era of working with Richard Branson, with Lance at all 7 of his tour victories, and working with U2, so on and so forth. So that was the cliff notes on how I got from there to here.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it's really interesting to me that the combination of the mindset part, the physical activity part, the health part, and then you mentioned the arts, music, and visual arts there as well, that one of your mentors exposed you to. So combining all those together, because I think there's so many different dimensions to success that come into it. I think there's a little bit of a secret there, perhaps.
Well, I think there's no doubt, because if we're too close to one thing too often, then we can't see other perspectives that may take what we're doing to a higher level that comes outside of where we spend most of our time. And that was one of the advantages that I had from that. And the other advantage that I had is that I was able to look at a team or an individual as an entire entity made up of people that had different emotional, physical, mental needs to be able to perform at their best. And I knew how to weave together all the parts into a single whole that made exponential output possible, where again, the coach knows one slice of the pie, but he doesn't know how to integrate the entire pie and all the parts that have to go right, which I did. And a mentor is similarly handicapped in a certain way, is that they may help you in health, they may help you in finances or in business, but they don't know about the rest of your life. And that may actually be where you're being held up, that prevents you from moving forward in business. So with that versatility that I gained from that experience, I was able to look at everything from multiple perspectives and extract processes and innovation to be able to get to the top of the field and also stay there.
Now, one of the fascinating things to me reading through your background, you and I think this leads on to a question, but you say that you became an Olympian at age 11. Now, when you went through the background there before, you said that it was at age 21 where you attended the Olympic Games.
That's correct.
But I think what you're saying is when you made the decision that you wanted to go to the Olympics was, I think you said 8 years old or so, but when you showed promise as a cyclist, you said, that's how I'm going to do it. And that was when you made the decision. And that was essentially when you became an Olympian. And that for the whole 10 years, when you prepared until you actually competed at the Olympic Games, that was your identity already.
Well, it really was. I think that if we have a premonition that's gifted to us and we have the intuition to be able to receive it, we can see that in a certain sense we've won before we even start, not because we've convinced ourselves of it, but because there was a calling of us to it that we had the ability to first off identify and receive. And there's a certain level of certainty that comes along with that when the right person is matched with the right ambition, where you do kind of sense that this will end up where you anticipate it being.
All right. Now, you've talked a little bit about integrating all the things from a coach, a mentor, and an expert. Describe to us exactly what a cornerman is.
Well, a cornerman, in my opinion, is the rarest of all advisory species, because again, if you look at a coach can be an expert in one particular area and a specialist, like in one slice of the pie of what has to go right to manifest a big goal or ambition. And when you look at and expand that a little bit, then you have the mentor that has a little bit more bandwidth, a little bit more experience, but similarly, they may know your business world inside and out, but what about you? And so what we have and what happens in our private life influences our business life and vice versa. And a cornerman is someone that's usually older. They've been successful in many areas. They've helped people in many areas be successful. There's nothing in life that they haven't seen because they've been through a first pass at life. They're able to recognize patterns, and they're able to make recommendations that represent that which has to go right in the moment, where both the personal and the professional life will benefit. And that's a huge distinction. In my opinion, that's perhaps one of the most important elements that anybody should have in their corner, so to speak. If you look at, the movie Rocky, Rocky had the old guy in his corner, Mickey, and Mickey was kind of reading the match as it was unfolding and told Rocky what he needed to do in real time. Rather than practice and prepare, it was really in real time. Let's read it and let's make the decisions as they're unfolding so that we're actually shortcutting our progress to becoming champion of the world. And that's really what a cornerman does. He has the ability to look at every aspect of a person or a team and know exactly how much of what has to be there to be able to get to producing the highest outcomes most frequently. And that's what distinguishes the cornerman from the coach and the mentor.
All right. That's a really great explanation, so I appreciate that. Now, we touched a little bit on the champion's mindset and basically how you kind of made being an Olympian part of your identity well before you even started preparing, I guess, and seriously training and so on. What can people do? I mean, what is the champion's mindset, and how can people take those lessons and embrace that into whatever endeavor they're doing, whether that's sport or business or the arts?
That's such a great question. Well, first off, this is my take on it, is that we as a human have two parts to how we look at life. We have a human mindset, and the human mindset is rigid, it's fixed, it's programmed into our DNA. It's really our default beliefs about certain things, and it's our survival impulses that are necessary in times of survival. And because of that, it gets first dibs at every moment. But the problem with our survival impulses is that you can't create a great career if you're responding to life through your survival impulses. And that's the problem, because it gets first dibs at every moment. For example, have you ever said anything that you really regretted saying, but at the time you said it, it seemed so right? Well, of course. Yeah. Well, what was it that make us say that? What is it that make us say that? Well, it was, again, a survival impulse that was faster than we can think. And that's what human nature is. We have these survival instincts that we do that are impulsive, that are all about survival. And it could care less about your personal Olympic gold medal in business or in life itself. It could care less because it's only geared towards survival. And we got to be really clear about that. And this human mindset, it's on all the time. You can't shut it off. It's always there. But the good news is that contrary to that, we have the champion's mind. And a mind is like a living, breathing, three-dimensional part of us that's our intellectual library. It's our knowledge base. It's also our intuition. And those two things together make up the champion's mind, which is really our innate wisdom. And our innate wisdom is calibrated towards creating life excellence. And so you can see that we have an innate conflict that we all experience every moment of our life. And this is the battle between our human mindset and our champion's mindset that are at war over controlling our conscious decision making. And if we live our life through our survival impulses, at the very best, you're going to live a life of mediocrity, impulse, and frustration. And if you live it through the champion's mind, which again gets the final say on what we do when we apply the champion's mind, this is how we create a life of excellence. And this is how we become prolific. And this is how we make prudent decisions. And this is how we become iconic. And let me say this and give a couple of examples. So let's say you're given an opportunity. Well, the human mindset that's all about fear and survival, it'll say, what do I stand to lose? That's the first impulse. What do I stand to lose here? Wait a minute. Hold on a second. That's constriction. It's not optimistic. It's hoarding. It doesn't want to share. It's cold. It's not friendly. But the champion's given an opportunity. They don't think like that. The champion is, what do I stand to gain? It's the first thing they think about. It's optimistic, it's big, it's expansive, it's gargantuan, it's friendly. There's enough slices of the pie for everybody. So that's an example. Another really good example is the human mindset or survival impulses believes that the more perfect you are, the better you perform. And I think we all know that that's not true. The more perfect we try to be, sometimes the worse we perform.
Mm.
And as I told this person who I helped win an Olympic gold medal, I said, Greg, it's not about you being perfect. That's the reason why you're starting to tighten up before the Olympic final. I said, you've got to get away from that because you're trying to make a contingency for everything that could go wrong. You think that's how you're going to win. I said, the way you're going to win is doing what the champions do. They know it's not about perfection, but it's about the one or two things that count. So if you only pay attention to your warm up in your first 4 steps to the run up to the board, he was a long jumper, your foot will hit the board in the right place, you get the lift, it's presto, instant gold medal. So there are these distinctions that really make a difference between a good life and or a frustrated life and Olympic gold medals. And Greg did go on to win an Olympic gold medal. But my point is that we have this war that's going on inside us. And so when I look at mindset and champion's mind, I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm not talking about gratitude journals. I'm not talking about thinking about my aspirations. It's not that. It's about, do we really have the real skill in life to meet life as it shows up moment by moment? And can we read it? And do we know what to do in critical moments to deliver when it counts? And when we understand the champion's mind and how it thinks and what it does, then we're able to take control over that part of us that wants to talk us out of everything good, especially like at critical moments. You know, another example, let's say you're given an opportunity, let's say you're given an accountability. Well, the human mindset, because it's fear-based, is going to say, well, I'm doing my best. You know, well, you're doing your best. It's like you've already imposed a ceiling on yourself without even testing yourself against what's possible. You know, champions don't think like that. You know, given an accountability, you know, champions are going to say, well, it may be in your genes, but it's in my power. So there's a whole other way of doing this. And I've created a whole methodology around this. And what I'm simply saying here is that we got to be really clear about where we're making our decisions from, because your human mindset, your survival impulses, it's not possible to live a life of excellence if that's how we're responding to life. The only way you can really get there is by superseding that, by taking actions that have proven themselves to advance us towards goal completion. It's the only way that we can do it.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard it said that the fear base comes from, you know, the prehistoric existence that humans had, and you know, we were worried about being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So the fear was, you know, run soon as that risk was there, run away. So, and I like to think that, well, you know, there's no sense in running away from a saber-toothed tiger if there's no saber-toothed tiger there. And most of the time these days that isn't applied because they've become extinct many hundreds of thousands of years ago.
But a point I want to make about this is that our fear-based survival instincts that are our first impulse, and they happen faster than we can think. That's what survival's all about. You probably have been in an intersection where somehow a car's going through the intersection. You know how to swerve to avoid the crash. Well, how did you know how to do that? You know, it's faster than you can think. So the point I want to make here is that our survival impulses is part of our survival biology that's faster than we can think. But the problem is that because it's our first inclination and we're told to go with our first impulse, well, maybe we're not going with the right thing, you know? And so I feel that the imposter us is really our survival impulses that we can't get away from. And the real us is the champion's mind that makes really good decisions based upon what history tells us that can convert opportunities into successes. And there is a huge distinction there.
Yeah. Well, it certainly, I mean, the approaching an intersection and sensing that danger is an example where that survival instinct is really important. But
It serves us well.
The other one that I think comes up a lot for people is going on stage to give a public speech and being so afraid of that. And I think the survival instinct there is probably a little bit misplaced.
Well, I think it is, but it again speaks to this whole idea is that when you get on stage, and you try to think and talk your way through the presentation, then your timing is always off. But if you
Hmm.
show up and you have trust in your preparation and you speak from and trust your training, then your words roll off your tongue in perfect sequence with perfect timing. So again, human nature wants to control everything, but when we do that, then our timing's off.
Hmm.
And I think we've all experienced that when we get off the stage and we say, that wasn't me. Well, yeah, it wasn't you. The real you is the champion you, but that didn't control the conversation. It was your human nature that started to lock up because you tried to control things too tightly and then things disintegrated. So, again, the most important thing I can say to people is that we have to make sure that we understand that our first impulses may be our human nature that isn't the true us. It may be the imposter us, and the real us comes from a place of trained action in response to certain things that history has proven to be true, but it may seem a bit contrarian on the surface, but it in fact is that which catapults us forward.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you made a couple of important points there that I want to come back to, and I think that's around having trust in
Mhm.
yourself, but also the preparation part. Now, the story of the high jumper, where you had him focus on his warm up and making sure that he landed his launch right on the bar. Is it what do they
It was
call
on the
it?
board. Yeah, the foot hit the
The
board,
board.
you get the lift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I'm guessing just from what I've observed, I don't know much about high jumping. From what I've observed, that
Me
the
neither.
ideal situation is landing right on that board, because that way you're as close to the start of the jump as you can be. If you land too far back, you're penalizing yourself.
Mhm.
If you overstep it, you obviously, that jump doesn't count. So,
Mhm.
but the key part, I guess, in that is making that one small change and having the trust that that one small change, everything else will fall into place. But the other bit is the preparation. So just talk to us a little bit about that in terms of the champion's mindset, because people think if they change their mindset, everything else will happen. But there is preparation to be done, isn't there?
Well, that's actually part of the mythology, and one of the reasons why people fail to progress consistent with their ability is that the mythology here is that the bigger you think and the more expansive the goal is, the better it is, and that's where you should start. And I'm saying, well, I think it's much better to really prune it back and select the right goal, not necessarily the smart goal, but the right goal for you that's consistent with your abilities, and to make sure that you follow the champion's golden rule. And the champion's golden rule is you do the homework and the test is easy, meaning that when you prepare well, then you just show up and you execute the test and you let your preparation do the work for you in the performance. And in my estimation, there's another side to the mythology. People think that if you just want it bad enough, it's going to happen. And if you just show it up and make it happen by addressing whatever is in your path, that's the fastest way to get to where you want to go. And I know that any prolific achiever never looks at it like that. They first off, in preparation, before they even start pursuing the goal, they want to make sure they have the right goal. That's more
Mm,
important than the smart goal. And then they make sure that they understand why they're doing it, and they make sure that they understand the impact of the goal, that it's consistent with what they want to have happen when the goal is achieved. They need to have the mindset. And the reason why mindset's important is because it gives us courage, the champion's mindset. And courage is being able to take action despite our survival impulses. And then we need to look at, do we have the resources? Do we have the time and the energy? Do we have the talent and the will? Do we have the skills and knowledge? Do we have the team? Do we have material and supplies? Do we have the plan? And so those are really the 5 steps of my goal achievement roadmap process that have to be vetted in preparation, just to make sure that we're properly prepared to start pursuing the goal. We don't have to be perfectly prepared, but we have to be prepared enough and we have to know it, so our confidence is high in our preparation, so that when we start, we trust our preparation and we also trust our resources. And I find
Mm.
that universally people very rarely take the time to do that. And the reason why is that their human mindset makes them think that if they don't get started now, that somebody's going to take their idea and they're going to be put at the end of the line. Or they feel, well, I'm not showing faith in the process by just showing up and starting. Therefore, the universe is going to take away the opportunity from me because I'm not demonstrating enough faith. And none of those are true. That's, again, complete mythology. To start enough prepared because you have a structure to follow by following the 5 steps in preparation, which again, goal clarity, have the right goal, understand your motives, your whys behind it because it gives you drive, making sure you understand the impact your goal when achieved because that gives you purpose, making sure you have the champion's mindset and you understand the human mindset that you have the courage to do the right thing at the right time. And then the 5th step is to make sure that you have the resources necessary to responsibly start pursuing the goal to give yourself the best chance of success. And that's all only in preparation. We haven't
Mm.
even started yet.
Mm.
That's the first place to start.
Yeah. Well, once I think that comes back to what we started talking about earlier, where you made the decision to make being an Olympian part of your identity. You perhaps you didn't know, but you were going through those 5 steps already.
Well, that's, interesting that you would say that because I was, but I didn't know it. I was
Mm.
just kind of following the path of what made sense to me. But then once I was done with the Olympics and I got into my advisory consulting, after seeing people in business, sports, and entertainment succeed because of the model that I had created, it wasn't about the discipline, it was about the model. And when I sat down to look at what are the common threads that run through sports, business, and entertainment to create success, it all came out to be the same thing. It was a model that created excellence in any discipline. And of course, the first half of that was all about preparation because how we prepare is how we perform. We can't think our way to perform if we're not trained to do it. The training
Mm.
is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. How we prepare is how we perform.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Now, I mean, you kind of talked a lot there on a framework and so on, and I love the success principles, which I think mirrors that a little bit. The success principles with knowing your outcome, taking action, having the sensory acuity to kind of see what's working and what's
Mhm.
not working, then having the flexibility to make adjustments, and then I guess what you call mindset, the physiology and psychology of excellence. But that, to me, that also brings in the health part, and I'm
Mhm.
fascinated that you've incorporated that part into the business world. I mean, I think it's obvious why physical health would be so important to an elite athlete, but in the business world, we tend to ignore that physical health a little bit, or put it on the back burner as we spend long hours in business, perhaps neglecting our diet, neglecting exercise, um, perhaps putting huge stress on ourselves so that the mental well-being suffers as well. Um, Explain or tell us a little bit more about what we can learn from the athlete's mindset, the champion athlete's mindset, that and why health is so important, both physical and mental health in a business sense.
Well, health is very interesting because usually health and relationships are what are put on the back burner.
Mm.
And the business people always promise their loved ones that it's not going to be like this forever. Trust me, once I arrive, it's not going to be like this. And they're still saying the same thing 20 years later.
That's right.
And once you're on the hamster wheel, it's hard to jump off. But I think the important thing about this, and the reason why business people came to me originally, was that they not only wanted to become their own champion, but they wanted to avoid the health catastrophes in relationship failures that they saw was happening with their same age counterparts, somewhere between late 30s, early 40s, maybe into the 50s. It is not unusual, but to only say that here's what people need to understand is that the long hours, the lack of exercise and the poor sleep and diet, they have a cumulative effect where every day we don't recover properly, it's starting to have a cumulative effect on our health and on our ability to perform and on our longevity. But we don't really know that because we don't feel it. And we may not feel it for 20 or 30 years because the body as a physical entity has got 20 or 30 years of functional reserve on board, meaning that the body can take about 20 or 30 years of physical abuse, and the body can break itself down to create the nutrients necessary to get through that period. But it's somewhat like driving a car in the fast lane on the freeway where you're draining the tank. And when the tank's running on fumes, you can still be going full speed. And you have the illusion that you have a full tank, but you're running on fumes. And once the car has consumed the fumes, then it stops dead in the fast lane. And that's what happens to us because the nervous system plays a little trick on us. That's how we experience the world around us. And the nervous system, there has to be a certain amount of illness within us to turn the nervous system on to make us consciously aware of it. Therefore, we have an illusion that we're healthy when we're not because we're slowly losing our health and our functional capacity. And unfortunately, once the 20 or 30 years is up, which let's say is in the late 40s, maybe early 50s, late 30s, early 40s sometimes, that's when we're running on fumes and we don't even know it because it still hasn't hurt me yet. But you could be literally one step away from a detonation that could take you down and out of the game. And that's one of the things that I work with my clients with, whether they're individuals or teams, is to make sure that we're really mindful about what the effect of the total load of the strain of being in business has on us physically and mentally and from a relationship perspective, so that as long as we're kind of paying the debt back steadily and not digging for ourselves a hole that could lead again to a catastrophic health or relationship failure event, then a couple of things happen. We are confident in ourselves that we'll be around to finish the job, that we'll be a credible leader because we know that we're not going to go down for the count. We have confidence in ourselves because we were making good judgments consistently all along. And people that view us from the outside, they know that something's different that inspires them to follow us to the ends of the earth because they trust our ability to take them to the promised land as perhaps an employee or an independent contractor or something along those lines. So again, I pay a lot of attention to that so that myself and my clients know that we can peak perform over the long term and the risk of a health related event is minimized. And I think that people really need to be mindful of that because if we spend 20 or 30 years to get it figured out and we're at a place where we can now create the most significant additions to our legacy and then we get sick, it's like all that time and effort was for naught. But another thing about this is that, in my opinion, we make a promise to other people. It's like when I get there, things are going to change because we're deferring this. And if we get there and things don't change and we go down, I think that's a big breach of trust to those people that have entrusted us at a certain point to do our part to stay in the game, to be the right parent, to be the right spouse, to be the right friend, to be the right mentor, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that is probably one of the most compelling arguments I've heard to, making sure you get the balance right, take care of yourself, take care of your relationships, take care of your physical and mental well-being, as well as putting in the time and energy, of course, in whatever endeavor you're involved in.
Yeah, just if I may, just a couple of practical take homes here is that, like, if you're getting up in the morning refreshed and ready to go, then you're paying back your reserves. But if you're getting up a little bit later, but once and you're kind of grouchy in the morning, grouch factor's up, you need a little bit more coffee than you think that you should be drinking or whatever, but then everything seems okay after you get your engines running, but the fuse is a little bit short, that's a sign that you're probably halfway into your tank and it hasn't been repaid enough. But if you're in a situation where you just can't get up and you can't get going, and every ounce of will is what's required to get through the day, then it does mean that you're moving into the red zone, and professional consultation is necessary to identify the depletions that may be there from a nutrition standpoint, hormones, neurotransmitters, and all those things. You may have kind of run out of those, and that can explain why we're unresponsive. But if we get it soon enough, then things could be done to take us back to replenishing those levels, to then have a runway in front of us that will allow us to manifest the legacy that we're capable of, and also live the life of value and contribution that we want, so desperately to be able to share with our families and with our coworkers.
All right. Well, great advice. Thanks for that. Now, one of the things that I'm fascinated by, what are some of your daily rituals?
Well, that's a good one. Well, I got a lot of them, but let me share with you my top couple, if I may. I think by far the most important thing that anybody asks themselves before they start to engage people, places, and things every day, they have to decide how they're going to show up. And what I mean by that is that, are you going to show up from the top of your game to be the person that you want to be for everybody? We have to decide that. Or are we going to show up, and are we going to let our moods dictate who we are for others? And I don't think that's fair. And let me say why in a very personal way, is that we adopted our daughter 11 years ago from Colombia at the age of 10. It was a very unusual adoption, and people look at it, older kids, as bit damaged goods, and they don't want to have anything to do with them. But we decided that we would adopt an older child. And unfortunately, my daughter, since the age of 4 on, was exposed to the most inhumane cruelty, both physically and mentally. And yes, that too, repeatedly, that anybody could ever imagine. And she didn't ask for that. And how much she can outrun that, how much she can heal for that, is a bit unknown. She's 21 right now. She's a junior in college. We've done everything that we can within our human power to be the parents that she deserves to have. But my point is that she didn't ask for that. And the scars of that may affect her life forever. And to me, none of us, it had people shown up differently for her, she could have had a normal life, the same that most of us have. But yet now she has this monkey on her back that could significantly impact the quality of her life forever. And it all goes back to, had those people showed up differently for her, she wouldn't have this terrible burden to have to deal with. And so that's why I say that none of us, in my opinion, have the right to show up and pile on top of other people, because life is tough enough. Just one-on-one with ourselves is difficult enough. And I really feel like when we make the conscious decision every day to show up from our highest level of service to humanity and give everything the best that we've got, then we've done our job to service humanity in a way that we should be addressing each other. And let me make one other point here, is that some people would say, well, that's not being authentic. You can't have a good day every day. And I say, yes, you can. You just got to decide that you're going to do it. The imposter us is the whiner and the complainer, which I'm allergic to, by the way. But to only say that when we make a conscious decision to show up from our highest level of competency and support for other people, that's the real us. The other us is the human side. The real us is the superhuman side that can call people to a higher game. So that's the first and foremost ritual I have. The second ritual is that I look at, why am I doing this? And I look at one picture that I have in front of me on my desk. It's my wife and my daughter. And then there's a picture of a crowd that represents my clients, that represents those people that I'll interface with, represents those people that are 1 degree of separation away from the people that I interface with. And I want to remind myself of why I'm doing this, is that when I'm doing it for others and I'm doing this to take care of my family, then what that does is that it gives me a certain level of drive to be insistent that I get certain things done at a certain level on behalf of honoring my obligation to humanity and to my family. And those are, in my mind, probably the two most important rituals, of which there are others that involve physical engaging the day, getting the right nutritional start, et cetera. But those two are the first and foremost things that I think are paramount in my life.
Yeah, well, can I say that your daughter's... Sorry, I'm going to get emotional here, but
Me too. I already am.
I think your daughter's very lucky.
Well, let me put it this way, is that people have said to me, literally, I was on survival for 10 years, raising my daughter because it was so difficult. But again, I realized that she didn't ask for what was forced upon her, and that we were part of unraveling that puzzle. And so, for me, people ask me, well, you were at the height of your career. I was 58 at the time, making $1 million a year. And when we adopted her, she didn't speak English. We didn't speak Spanish. She had no school. Imagine going to Australia or the United States at 10, and you got to start school and you never went to school. Like, how do you catch up? And she had PTSD and ADHD from getting beat up and all the other horrific physical abuses that she had piled on top of her. And she had parasitic ridden body, and she almost lost her teeth. I mean, it was as bad as it gets. When I realized the magnitude of the challenge that we had in front of us, and being an Olympian, you don't play the game for a silver medal and you don't play the game for a bronze medal. You play it one way, and that's to win the gold medal. And if that's your aspiration and you've declared it, then you got to step into it and you got to deliver on it. And so I realized that to be the person my daughter needed me to be for her, not a half dad, but a full dad, that I had to severely restrict my professional life, like by 90%. I realized that I got to cut this 90% of my life out right now to be her dad. I still played at the highest level. And people said, well, Jeff, what about your career? And I seriously, it's like what I thought about it is that, number one, when you show up and you service the obligation from a place of honor and respect and dignity, that I kind of felt, well, this gives God a way to find another path to a faster, bigger, better for me that I can't see right now. But I'm not going to barter for it, saying that if I do this, then I'm going to get that. That's not fair. You have to be able to step into it regardless of what the perceived cost is on the other side of it. Your job is to get the job done honorably, and whatever it takes to do that, you do it. And you don't try to hold on to something for later that you have to do now. It just doesn't work like that. And so the thing that I want to share here, and why this is important for business, is because we all go through the guilt of spending too many hours away from the family. We all go through a lot of guilt. Like, sometimes we'll pay our employees before we'll pay ourselves. I know what it's like because I've been there. And I'm just saying that, in the certain situation, we have to decide where we're going to apply the honor and what the rules to the game are really going to be. And when we do that, life always seems to work its way out in a way that we could not have conceived of prior. But the fact that we showed up for duty and we did what had to go right when it had to go right kind of opens up that portal for things to happen like in that manner. And that's why that's really important for me. And it's a great analogy for business, because what I also learned from raising my daughter is that you can love anybody. You just decide you're going to do it. You don't need a special reason to do it. It's the same thing with our employees or our boss. We don't need a special reason to love them. We just need to decide that we're going to be a great team player. It helps him. It helps us. We both win. I also learned from this is that when you do what has to go right, then life's fate favors you. I learned that as well. So the lessons that were learned in the raising of my daughter are incalculable in terms of the parallel to business. You learn to stay in the game until you get to where you need to go. You don't quit. You never give up. You find that's the difference between a champion and the human mindset. The champion's mind is, I'll find a way. The human mindset isn't I'll find a way. It's like, I'm doing my best. Like, what are you talking about? You're doing your best. You find a way. It's never over till it's over.
So that's a very powerful message there. And also, with what you said, when we started that conversation around showing up every day as your best. And of course, that doesn't mean that you have to be in a good mood every day. It just means that you keep your bad mood to yourself. Yes, you might confide
Exactly
in
right.
somebody and have a conversation and perhaps ask for help with some trusted individuals, but you don't kind of pay it out on other people because you're in a bad mood.
It doesn't help. Actually, showing up in a good mood is our therapy for self. Really. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really our own therapy, and
Mm.
it happens to benefit everybody else as well. And look, if you're a leader like that, everybody knows that you're going to have bad days, but when you show up and you make it a great day for everybody else, regardless, they don't look at you as a phony.
Mm.
They look at you as a master of control over yourself. They admire that. That's leadership.
Yeah.
It's not being inauthentic. That's the highest level of authenticity.
That's right. And also you
You know,
mentioned choice. You can choose to love people regardless. You can also choose to be in a good mood regardless.
you can. And again, it's our own therapy. We don't need a special set of conditions to be happy or show up for our team. Our
Mm.
personal life is a separate thing,
Yeah.
and again, when we display this level of leadership, it's not stoic. It's about, I can lead you anytime, any place, and you can trust me because I'm never going to cave and make an amateurish mental error
Mm.
because I know how to stay in the game when it counts, when things get difficult. And people trust that. And when they trust that, then they will follow us forever. And that's what we want. We don't want to be having to hire and fire employees like a turnstile. We want
Yeah.
predictable people that care for us over the long term.
Mm. All right. Now, I'm pretty sure that part of your daily rituals also involve a bike ride. So tell us a little bit about your bike ride, because that's a personal interest to me.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. Well, yeah, I'm looking at my bike right now, as a matter of fact. Yeah, well, so I'll ride, every week I'll take a 4-hour ride, a really long ride, and I'll ride really hard the first hour, and then the next 3 I'll cruise. And that's where I percolate. And that's when I think a lot about my clients and what I need to do to help them dominate the world. That's kind of what I do. And, on good days, I got 20-year-old Olympic legs, and the other days I feel my age. And I just find that physical activity is really important for me because it allows me to problem solve better. It allows me to have a level of fitness to know I can stay in the game and push. It is a barometer about what I can expect of myself in the present and in the future. And it's an inspiration to other people as what's possible as we age in terms of our physical, prowess and performance ability. And so for me, a bicycle ride and sweat is like an essential daily nutrient. And I feel like if I just don't get it right in, that the day is not complete. And, I was involved in 9 Tour de France's, which was a great case study for humanity and what humanity is capable of doing. Being an Olympian, I know what it's like to compete at the top, and that taught me a lot about life and taught me a lot about myself. So cycling is a great sport because you can't hide.
Mm.
You're either good or you're not good, and you can't blame it on equipment. You can't blame it on team. It's kind of you against what everybody sees on the bike and what they see produced. So I'm a
Yeah.
big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can certainly relate to the daily cycling. I kind of feel as though if I haven't gone out on my daily ride, and I actually didn't do a daily ride this morning, but that was a conscious decision because we've got
Okay.
very heavy smoke haze and poor air
Yeah.
quality at the moment because of the bushfires here, and today was particularly bad. So I thought it was
Oh,
probably
sorry.
not a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But as you say, that kind of I miss it when I don't do it.
I just have to ride. I just have to ask, what sort of bike you riding these days?
My main bike is a Linsky.
That's a great bike. I love that bike.
Hmm.
I'm actually riding a Specialized Venge, which is the aero bike with the
Okay.
internalized cables.
Yeah.
I just love it's like a piece of art. I just like looking at it, actually.
Yeah, well, you can, us cyclists can certainly get a lot of pleasure out of looking at the equipment. You
Right,
said the
eye
equipment
candy.
doesn't
You
matter,
got it.
but that's part of it.
I love looking at
Yeah.
it.
All right. I think it's probably a good time to move on to the buzz now, which is our
Okay,
innovation
man.
round. And
Yeah, bring it on.
yeah, it's designed to help our innovators and leaders who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field to get some tips from your experience. So I've got
Sure.
5 questions, and
All
hopefully
right. Let's do
you'll
it.
give us something to take away and for them to take action today.
I'll do
So,
my best.
what do you think the number one thing is anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Well, I think you need to spend time around a lot of diversity. You need to be a student of your discipline. You need to read the magazines. You need to show up at trade shows. You need to talk with other people. You need to take time to be an uncensored possibility thinker and think of how you can combine things in a different way and give yourself permission to think like that. Keep an archive of your ideas to refer back to for inspiration. I think those are really the keys to it. And when we cultivate our creativity like that, we're germinating potential for creating things that have never been created before.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, we've been talking today about a lot of lessons out of your sporting background and translating that into business and high performance and even into the parenting arena. So that,
Hmm.
that's an example of
Hmm.
doing exactly that, the
Hmm.
diversity and applying different thinking in different areas
Hmm. Hmm.
to, well, applying thinking from different areas into where you're focused now.
Another thing I want to say here is I think also being receptive, because if you look at Einstein, he didn't start out to create the theory of relativity. He was just screwing around and he kept his field of gaze open to possibility. And as he continued to build his knowledge by showing up in different places, all of a sudden there was a catalytic moment where things came together and he had a suspicion for the theory of relativity. And that's exactly what it's like for us. And that's the reason why we need to put ourselves out there and test the waters just through sheer exposure.
Yeah. So being receptive to what you
100%.
see is really important
100%.
as well.
Yep.
All right. Now, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
A couple things is that I do practice an uncensored possibility thinking exercise where I think about something that I think is possible, and then I make it 50% bigger to a point where I kind of scare myself whether I can really actually do this or whether it's possible. And then what happens, I start to feel more comfortable with the bigger idea, then I make it bigger. And so I practice that skill regularly. The other thing that I do is that I purposely schedule on my calendar things that I would normally not do. So, for example, I decided I was going to go to a Men's Society meeting, which are people that have IQs over 130. And so I decided I would go there. I've never been there. So I went there and there were guys playing chess with 10 other guys and people quizzing each other on physics questions and stuff. I mean, it was really odd for me, but the fact that I was around something new that wasn't part of what I normally do exposed me to a couple of things that allowed me to think in a slightly different way towards something I was working on that allowed me to take it in an entirely different direction. So, purposely scheduling on the calendar difference and uniqueness
Mm,
regularly and making sure that it's really different
yeah.
and not being threatened by that.
Yeah. That's great advice. And I love to add on at the end, not being threatened. So it comes back to getting over that fear and
Yeah,
going into those environments where, and then being open to what you learn there, what you can see there.
exactly right.
Hmm. All right. Do you have a favorite resource that you use most often?
I'd like to think it's my brain, but I'm never quite sure how well it's going to perform for me. But I think the resource that I use the most really is the pooled intellect of key people that are in my inner circle. I love to have regular contact with them, and that's, I guess you can say it is a tool, but people often see things that, again, they can share where they've done the homework rather than me sniffing around. They can do it and share with me things that they've discovered and vice versa. So it becomes a win-win for everybody, for sure. I think that that's the most valuable resource, is that if you have a collection of colleagues that are amenable to connecting on a regular basis and sharing insights, that to me is one of the best resources possible, or one of the best tools,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah, well, you touched earlier on in champion mindset on resources and the team as being one of those key resources. So that fits really well with
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
Okay, now what's the best way to keep a client on track?
Well, I do it through my process called the Goal Achievement Roadmap, and it's actually a process. It's got a beautiful graphic, and it shows the preparation side, and it shows the performance side. It shows the 5 steps in each, and the one thing is that if we can locate where they are, and I can say, based on what you told me, you're here, and because you're here, it means that we do this to move forward, then it allows us to anticipate what's coming and avoid preventable problems and seize best opportunities and have the smoothest path forward. So that's the way that I keep them on track. It's called reality.
Hmm.
It's like whatever you told me, whatever I see, this tells me that you're here. It's like a thumbtack on the map on the wall. And if we can name it and we know where we are in relationship to the destination, then we know exactly what we need to do to responsibly move forward. And that's what I do. And I've got a process that I use to do that. No
Hmm.
guessing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, I love that. Working through processes like that and step by step
That's
approach
it.
with a roadmap. Yeah.
That's it. Can't hide.
All right. Now, what's the number one thing you think anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Well, I certainly think that the primary differentiator, this is such a great question. I think that's it to create a new category.
Hmm.
Because if you create a new category, then you're the first in category. There's nobody to compare yourself against. So, for example, I knew these guys that had this idea that they were going to, build a bar. I don't know what you call it in Australia, but a saloon, a bar,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, bar.
Yeah. But what they were going to do, they were going to bring pinball machines into it. So it was like a bar arcade. And like nobody had ever done that before. So it
Hmm.
was novel. It
Hmm.
was a bar arcade, the first one ever done. They became first in category. And because it was different, they just combined a couple of things. First in class, it became an extraordinary success. So I think that if you really look at what you're doing rather than trying to make it fit an existing category, maybe you can tweak it a little bit to be its first in its own unique category. I think that that's an easy differentiator that allows us to gain the benefits of being first kid on the block to have that.
Hmm. All right. Well, that's great advice, and I think you've done that yourself. Talking about yeah, talking about being a cornerman, new
Yeah,
category.
man. Right.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous, Jeff. I've really enjoyed this. Now, where can people reach out to learn more about you and perhaps even get in touch to say thank you with what you've shared?
Sure. Sure. A couple things here is that the website is www.drjeffspencer.com. But if you'd like a little sneak peek at the roadmap that I just explained that I use to locate where my clients are and where they're headed and what's coming to avoid preventable problems, I've created a video and you can go and take a look at it. And that's at www.blackbeltgoalachievers with an S on the end, blackbeltgoalachievers.com. And that'll take you to a place where there's a nice video that will explain to you what that looks like and some of the secrets that are within it. And then if you have any other questions, let me know. Just send me an email, jeff@drjeffspencer.com. Love to talk to you.
Great. And we'll include all those links in the show notes so people can click straight through.
That would be fantastic. And one
Yeah.
more thing I just might say here is that I also have what's called the Champions Club. And this is like a virtual meeting where we get together on Zoom twice a month for 90 minutes each. And then I do a 30-minute session with each of the people that have a seat within the Champions Club itself. If you're interested in that or any one-on-one collaboration, you can always reach out to me and we can explore those possibilities.
Excellent. All right. Sounds fascinating. Now, what piece of advice would you like to leave our listener with today?
Oh gosh, that's another great question. Here's what I'll have to say here is that, and I think about this a lot, that there's only one of you in all of creation. And I think about that. There's 7 billion people on this planet right now, and there's only one of you, which uniquely qualifies us to do some extraordinary things in life. We just need to define what that is and have a model to be able to manifest that. But every word we say, every thought we think, every moment we show up speaks to humanity in some way. And for me, it's important that we show up from our best to be able to call people to a higher game. And what I do know is that there's always room at the top for the best. And we, in my opinion, are here on this earth, as I tell my daughter, you're here to express your gifts, and you have a moral obligation to do that. That's my language to her. And ever since she was a little kid, before she even understood English, she would leave the door, go out the front door to go to school. I would always say to her, don't be average. And with that being said, that's the mantra that I would like each of us to share with each other, to encourage each other to be able to get to the top of our game and manifest the qualities that we have that showcase what humanity is capable of doing.
Excellent. So be your best always.
That's it, man. Always
All right.
room at the top of the best.
Yeah. Now, finally then, who would you like me to chat with on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, and why?
That is a really good question. I have one person that I can think of, actually many, but one person, his name is Mitch Axelrod. And Mitch is one of the truly unsung heroes that, like me, has spent 10 years raising his son. He purposely took himself out of the game. One of the smartest people in terms of marketing and systems and business development sales that I've ever met. And I can't recommend him highly enough, because he's one of those guys that deserves to be acknowledged, that really isn't front and center in social media and things like that, because he took a different path in the raising of his son, Mitchell Axelrod. I can certainly provide you with contact information if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. We'll
do.
Get an introduction from you and reach out to Mitch and have him on.
Absolutely.
Sounds fascinating.
Fantastic human being.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for sharing your time and your insights with us today. I've really enjoyed this, had a blast. It's a pity we couldn't talk cycling so more, but we have to spare the listeners that are perhaps less interested in cycling than we are.
Okay, well, listen, promise me that at some point we'll get together and we'll turn the pedals together.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that if we have the opportunity. If next time I'm over in California or you're here in Melbourne region,
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's keep in touch and make sure we make that happen.
Let's do it. Thanks so much. And thanks again for just such an amazing opportunity.
Bye.
All right, cool. Thanks a million.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that delightful and inspiring conversation with Jeff and took something away from his episode. There was so much valuable information and inspiring tips that Jeff shared. I thought that it was all best encapsulated by his advice to show up as your best, because you are special and you have a unique contribution to make to the world that will have an impact. I'd love to know what you took away from Jeff's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Jeff Spencer. That is JEFFSPENCER. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Jeff Spencer. You'll also find contact information there for getting in touch with Jeff, as well as links to his website, his goal achievement roadmap video that we spoke about, his social media pages, and the other resources that we spoke about in today's conversation. Jeff suggested that we have a conversation with Mitch Axelrod, author of the New Game series, on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So, Mitch, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Jeff Spencer. Remember to check out our Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/Marketing Master. It's completely free and accessible without even giving away your email. But most importantly, it will enable you in less than 30 minutes to gain absolute clarity about who your ideal client is and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. And if you'd like our help to go even deeper into marketing mastery, or our help with producing your very own podcast, even launching your very own podcast if you don't yet have one, then send me an email to jurgen@innovabiz.co and we can set up a quick call to have a short conversation and find out whether we're a good fit for one another. And tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got some more fantastic guests lined up, including Ted Rubin, social media relationship expert, and Amanda Turner, writing coach. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the InnovaBuzz podcast at innovabuzz.com/subscribe. innovabuzz.com/subscribe. Make sure you never miss another episode. It would also mean a lot to me if you leave us a review, because what you think matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions, or questions you have, so go ahead and share them in the comments below the blog post for this episode. Until next time, I'm Jurgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.